The number one reason people don't retire early isn't their savings, it's health insurance. They stay in jobs they're done with because they can't figure out coverage between retirement and Medicare. I've spent 20 years treating people who delayed care because they lost coverage or couldn't afford it. So when someone tells me they're staying in a job they hate for health insurance, I get it. The fear is real. But so is the cost of waiting. You don't want to spend your healthiest years at a job over a problem that actually has solutions. I'm going to walk you through 11 of those solutions, and at least a few will change how you think about your timeline. Before we talk about the options, you need to know this first. You've been paying for healthcare your entire career. You just didn't see it. Every year, your employer paid $12,000 to $20,000 towards your health insurance premium. It was part of your total compensation. So even if it didn't come directly from the paycheck you received, it was likely taken off the top. We've always been paying for healthcare, and unfortunately, we won't stop paying for it even after age 65. Medicare isn't free either. Part B premiums alone run anywhere from $185 to $600 per person per month, depending on your income. So the healthcare bill doesn't disappear at 65. It just changes form. The question is never whether you'll pay for healthcare. The question is how to pay for it and how to make it affordable. I've put together a free guide that walks through all of these options in detail, including how to run the numbers for your specific situation. The link is in the description below. Now let's get into it. The first one sounds simple, and it's probably the most common choice when it's available, but it's not without its drawbacks. If your spouse is still working and has employer-sponsored coverage, you get on their plan as a dependent. Losing your employer coverage is a qualifying event, which means you can join their plan within 30 days. You don't have to wait for open enrollment. If you or your spouse has significant health issues, this is probably the safest and cheapest option. But it's not without its trade-offs. If your spouse keeps working, that affects your retirement timeline and your lifestyle. It may impact your relationship, your travel plans, and even your mental outlook about what retirement really means. Now, if you missed that 30-day window or you just need more time to think about it before committing to a plan, there's a short-term bridge most people misuse. And if you don't know the one rule that makes it actually work for you, you'll end up paying for coverage you don't have to. When you leave your employer, COBRA lets you stay on the same plan. You pay the full premium, your share, and what your employer was paying, plus a 2% administrative fee. It's expensive, easily $600 to $1,500 a month for an individual and even more for a family. But here's what makes it useful. You can continue your employer's exact health plan for the next 18 and sometimes up to 36 months. Same doctors, same coverage. So if you need that continuity of care for a short time, this may be a good option. Here's the rule that most people miss. COBRA can be enacted retroactively. You have up to 60 days after leaving your job to decide whether you actually want it. And if you enroll, you make up the premiums you missed, and if you decide not to take it in those 60 days, you lose COBRA as an option entirely. Think of COBRA as a safety net. It's a short-term bridge with a clear trade-off. Continuity of care in exchange for a higher monthly cost. Now, this next one only applies to a specific group, but if you're in it and you don't know this, you can lose tens of thousands of dollars in benefits by leaving even 1 year too early. If you're working for the government, the military, or public school systems, retiring early may actually be much easier from a healthcare standpoint. Many of these institutions provide retiree health coverage in addition to pensions, which can dramatically reduce uncertainty around healthcare costs. For military retirees completing 20 years of service, TRICARE provides coverage for the retiree and their family. And for federal employees, the Federal Employee Health Benefits Program provides retirement health coverage if you've been in the program for at least 5 years before you leave. TRS Care and similar programs provide comparable benefits for public school teachers and many state employees. These plans typically require meeting minimum years of service and retirement eligibility, and the benefits can vary widely. So if you're in one of these sectors, make sure you understand exactly what those requirements are before you make a retirement decision. Because leaving even 1 year early could mean losing access to benefits worth tens of thousands over your lifetime. This next option is how most early retirees will get their coverage, but there's a specific income strategy inside this that most people completely miss. And if you get it wrong, you could end up paying full premiums when you didn't have to. The Affordable Care Act Marketplace, or healthcare.gov, is where most early retirees will get their health insurance. And the key play here is subsidies. These subsidies are based on your modified adjusted gross income, not your net worth or how much you have saved. Your income is compared to the federal poverty level, and that ratio determines how much of the premium you're expected to pay. For example, if a household of 2 has an income of $50,000, that's a little over 200% of the federal poverty level. At that level, the maximum premium you'd pay might be around 6 to 7% of your income. If the insurance plan costs more than that, the government covers the difference through a subsidy. And this used to apply to all income levels. However, as of 2026, the enhanced COVID-era subsidies have expired. That means if your income goes even $1 over the 400% federal poverty level, you're no longer eligible for subsidies and you have to pay the full premium. That sounds pretty rigid, but there are strategies to work around it. Many early retirees, even people with $1 million portfolio, can qualify for significant tax credits under the ACA because they report very low taxable income. The modified adjusted gross income is your taxable income with certain deductions added back in. And it includes things like wages, IRA and 401k withdrawals, interest, dividends, capital gains, and taxable Social Security. But some sources of spending don't count, specifically qualified withdrawals from Roth IRAs, cash savings, and original basis from a brokerage account. Basically, any money you've already paid taxes on doesn't count. So let's say a couple wants to spend $80,000 per year. They might withdraw $40,000 from a traditional IRA and $40,000 from a Roth account or savings. That keeps their taxable component lower and helps them qualify for those subsidies. You can also change the timing of withdrawal strategically. ACA looks at your income in the year of coverage. So lean into those high income years, harvest capital gains, withdraw more from your 401k or IRA, and put that into savings for future use. Then, in lower income years, withdraw less and stay within the subsidy limits. Now, even if you can qualify for these subsidies, there's a real cost to this strategy that most people don't talk about. Pulling Roth contributions early means giving up tax-free growth. Reducing 401k withdrawals now may mean larger required minimum distributions later and a higher tax bill in your 70s. And there's the sequence of returns risk. A market downturn early in retirement can put the entire plan at risk. If you want a deeper dive into how sequence of returns risk works and what to do about it, I break that down in this video right here. Now here's one that most people with $1 million portfolio assume they'd never qualify for. But depending on how your income is structured, you might. Although Medicaid is usually for people with low income and limited assets, it can be part of a retirement healthcare strategy. By keeping income intentionally low, you could qualify for Medicaid and use it as a temporary bridge to Medicare. When you submit your information on the ACA website, you'll also be screened for Medicaid automatically, so you don't have to do anything extra to find out if you qualify. Medicaid can provide very comprehensive coverage, often including hospital care, physician visits, prescriptions, and sometimes even long-term care. But eligibility rules vary widely by state, and provider networks can be more limited. Not all doctors accept Medicaid patients. Eligibility also depends heavily on your reported income, so withdrawals from retirement accounts, investment income, or Social Security can affect whether you qualify. There's a lot to track with these first few options. If you want it all in one place, including the income thresholds and how to think about your specific accounts, the free guide in the description breaks it all down. Now this next one surprises people. If comprehensive health insurance is a priority for you, you can still have it without going back to your old job and without going back full time. Companies like Costco, Starbucks, and Chipotle have offered benefits to part-time employees. And even if you're not with one of those big employers, a less stressful part-time job may allow you to negotiate health insurance as part of your compensation. At minimum, part-time income can help you pay your premiums. Yes, the trade-off is obvious. You're still working, but it's not 40 hours a week at the same stressful job. This is a deliberate strategy. 2 or 3 years of part-time work to fund your healthcare gap while your portfolio compounds untouched can make a serious difference. And some people find they actually want something structured in the early years of retirement anyway. That's not settling. That's a smart, flexible strategy. Too often we're caught in this all or nothing mindset when it comes to work and retirement. The key to success is flexibility. Now, if you're in good health and your biggest issue is just cost, there is a category of coverage that can run significantly cheaper than traditional insurance. But there's an important catch that most people don't read in the fine print before they sign up. These are called health sharing ministries or health sharing plans. Some of the better known programs include Medicare, Samaritan Ministries, and Liberty Health Share. Many of these are faith-based communities where members contribute a monthly amount into a shared pool. When someone has a medical expense, funds from that pool help cover the cost. You are required to meet a minimum towards that expense, somewhat like a deductible, which could range from $1,000 to $10,000 per event. After that minimum is met, the community shares the cost. But here's the important distinction. These are not health insurance, and they are not required to pay your claims. They may exclude pre-existing conditions, limit coverage for preventative health, mental health services, and some procedures may not be eligible for sharing depending on the program's guidelines. If you're in good health and can absorb some risk, they may be a significantly cheaper option. Just make sure you understand how they work before you opt in. Now, if you have any self-employment income, even a small LLC, consulting work, or a small business, you may have access to a coverage option that most solo retirees don't even know exists. You may be able to purchase group health insurance through that business instead of buying an individual policy. In many states, businesses with fewer than 50 employees can access ACA-compliant plans through the shop marketplace, which sometimes offers broader networks than individual plans. The savings aren't always dramatic, but if you have business income, it may be worth a quick conversation with a benefits broker before you default to the individual marketplace. This next one isn't a coverage option, but it's important in reducing your healthcare costs. And if you're still working and haven't maxed this out, you're leaving one of the best deals on the table. A health savings account is usually paired with a high deductible health insurance plan, and it offers triple tax advantages. Contributions are tax deductible, growth is tax-free, and withdrawals for qualified medical expenses like copays and prescriptions are also tax-free. Although you generally can't use HSA funds to pay insurance premiums, there are important exceptions. You can use an HSA to pay COBRA premiums, Medicare premiums, and qualified long-term care insurance premiums. It also functions as a stealth retirement account because after age 65, you can use HSA funds for anything, just like a traditional IRA. So if you're still working and eligible, make sure to maximize it. That account goes with you and you can keep contributing to it as long as you remain on an HSA eligible plan. And if you've been ignoring this account, that has probably already cost you money. This last one I'm not recommending outright, but over 1 million Americans use it and the number keeps rising. So knowing how to use it properly could save you a significant amount of money, but you need to be safe. Medical tourism is becoming increasingly popular. Treatments abroad are often available at 30 to 65% of US costs. Quality and standards vary significantly. So if you go this route, use a facility that's accredited by the Joint Commission International or the Society for Quality in Healthcare. That's the minimum safety bar. So make sure you do your research and make sure to have a follow-up care plan before you leave. Now, we've talked about a lot of things outside of your control. This last area is where you may have more impact than you think. As an ER physician, I can tell you the cost of chronic disease is enormous, not just in suffering, but in copays, medications, and hospital visits. Managing type 2 diabetes alone can run $4,000 to $10,000 per year out of pocket. So if you have the ability to make changes, reduce your A1C, lower your blood pressure, and improve mobility, those changes directly reduce your healthcare costs. Every dollar you're not spending on prescriptions is a dollar that stays in your account. Your health doesn't just affect your retirement costs. It affects your ability to enjoy the retirement that you've spent decades building. Designing your healthcare plan in retirement comes down to two things: your income and your expenses. If you have enough saved, withdraw strategically and keep your income low in those gap years to get those subsidies. If you're not quite there yet, part-time work with health benefits is a bridge, not a defeat. And remember, the rules can change anytime, the market can shift, so having a cash buffer will give you greater security and flexibility. If you've been waiting to afford healthcare coverage before you can retire, I understand. The fear is real, the cost is real. But I want to challenge the assumption underneath. The perfect risk-free retirement where every variable is accounted for and nothing unexpected happens doesn't exist for anyone. The goal is to retire with enough flexibility to handle the unexpected. And healthcare, as expensive and complicated as it feels, is a solvable part of that equation. So yes, have a plan for healthcare, do the math, understand your options, but don't let imperfect options keep you from making a decision. The cost of waiting in years in health and in the life you want to be living, that cost is real too. Healthcare before Medicare is not a wall. It is a bit of a jungle, but with proper planning and a map, you can get through it. Healthcare is one piece of the puzzle, but when you're building a retirement plan, you have to consider all the variables. And there's one risk that almost nobody talks about, and I break it down in this video right here. I'll see you there next.